some things are scarier when you have to do them alone. Just think about it for a second. Haunted houses, presenting in front of your class, or trying out for teams, they're all scarier without your friends. Now, I remember when I was in high school, I was a sophomore and I went to my first haunted house. It was a lot of fun, but I probably wouldn't have done it on my own. Something that me and my friends always used to do together as well is we would go frog gigging. We'd go at the last day of school, we'd all hang out at my friend Caleb's house, and he lived out in the middle of nowhere, had a big old barn. We'd stay up all night, we'd make a fire, and then we'd go frog gigging and eat the frog legs. And it was disgusting, but also they taste kind of like chicken, just a little more rubbery. But all that to say, definitely something I would not have done if I hadn't been there with my friends. Things are simply better, less frightening when we can live life together with other people. And church is the same way. We're not saying that faith is scary or frightening, but there are certainly parts of it that are confusing, and it's easy, natural, to deal with doubts and struggles. All of that is less intimidating if you don't have to face it alone. And that's one of the reasons that we have small groups. We don't want church to just be a sit and listen to the lecture experience. It's not a monologue from the stage. We want it to be a dialogue or a conversation between you and other people. We want it to be a place where you can live life together alongside other people. If you want to follow Jesus faithfully, the church is the intersection where you meet like-minded people where they are Christian first and everything else second. It's a place where God's people meet and you find community that is thicker than our differences, and where you lean into God's leading for your own life. The concept of small groups sounds nice, but I recognize it might not be everyone's favorite. Maybe you're not even sure why we do them. You may not even be super into your own small group, and maybe for good reason. Maybe you already have friends. You might be thinking, I don't need a small group. I have my people. Why do I have to be friends with people at church? It feels forced, in other words. Or maybe you don't like some of the people in your group. Look, I get it. We don't just assume that if we put a group of people together that they're all going to suddenly just be best pals, right? Sometimes people annoy other people. Sometimes our personalities don't jive. Sometimes we just have less in common. Sometimes people just have those personality differences that they struggle with. Sometimes you may even wonder, am I supposed to fit in with this group? Or are they supposed to fit in with me? Either way, something just feels a little off. Maybe you don't trust some of the people in your group. Maybe you like most of the people in your group, but you don't necessarily trust them. You're pretty sure that if you share something deep and personal, someone would either make a joke about it or they'd talk about it outside of group. You just maybe don't know your group well enough to trust them with the important things. Being open, honest, and vulnerable sounds good, but you're not sure that you can trust the people in your own group. Maybe you just feel judged. Look, maybe you feel like your history or your reputation may not be the best, or that you've got mistakes in your past, or maybe you're new to church altogether and you don't know much about Christianity or the Bible, and maybe you're just a little nervous to speak up because what will people think? Will I sound stupid? What if I don't know what I'm talking about and people can tell, right? Maybe I haven't had the best behaviors in the past. No matter how much we say from the stage that it doesn't matter what you've done and you're always welcome in a small group, I get that sometimes believing that is a little difficult. Or maybe you're just an introvert and you don't like to talk to people. Maybe you're not much of a talker in general, and so to come to church and feel forced to talk with other people just feels weird for you. And maybe you feel like you come to church to connect with God. You don't have to talk with other people in order to do that. It's not that you think it's bad or wrong, you just hate it. You don't like when you are talking and other people are looking at you. So small groups is actually just kind of nerve-wracking or uncomfortable. And again, I totally get it. This list could go on and on. Maybe it's a different reason. Maybe you find yourself in small group wondering, what are we supposed to be doing here? Or counting the minutes until you can leave and go get something to eat at DQ, right? Or maybe you just are tempted not to go at all. Service ends, and instead of going to small group, you just want to bounce so that you can do your homework, right? Well, what's the point of small group? Like that's what we're going to actually be talking about over the next few minutes, and why you're sitting in your small groups right now for this week's message. So let's start by taking it all the way back to the beginning. You may have heard the very first chapter of the very first book in the Bible, Genesis, which starts with, in the beginning, God created, followed by a whole chapter listing all the things that God created and how God ranked each thing. When God created light, God labeled it good. When he created the sky, he said it was good. The land and its plants, the sun, the moon, the animals, the ocean and the sky, the animals on the land, all that's good. When God looked at his human creation, made in his image, this is what he said: "It's not good for man to be alone." So if you're tracking with me, the first not good thing in all of creation was being alone. So what's my point? We're wired to not be alone. We are designed for connection. We were made to do life with other people. But you know that already because you know what your friendships mean to you, what your family means to you. You can tell you're wired for connection by the way you feel that weird disappointment when you FaceTime a friend and they don't answer. Or you can tell that you're wired for connection by the way when something good happens to you, you immediately want to send a text to your friend. Or by when something terrible happens and maybe something unexpected and you just need someone to talk. So why does small group matter if you already have a group of friends? Well, small group matters because spiritual growth matters. This is more than just somebody to hang out with or snap with. This is secure, unfailing acceptance and connection with others. There's another place in Scripture where we see how important going through life together is. The author of Hebrews had something to say about it in his letter when he was writing to some of the first Christians trying to figure this all out. So check this out. He says, "Let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope that we affirm. For God can be trusted to keep his promises. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near." Now, don't miss this. This is a big deal. The writer of Hebrews is talking to Jewish Christians, which basically meant they could be facing either their execution or excommunication, the exclusion from their community because of their belief in Jesus. This wasn't just saying, hey, if it's not too much to ask, could you skip your gaming for a night and make time for a small group? No, this ask from the writer of Hebrews was saying meeting together consistently is worth the risk of putting your life on the line. For them, these were hard times. The writer of Hebrews stresses, don't give up meeting together. Why? Because we know at least two things happen when we meet together. Hope happens when you meet together. Now, what is hope? It's being convinced that our future is better than our now. And we all need that. Without hope, we don't remember our purpose. We don't rescue the abused. We more easily forget the reason for living. Without hope, instead of finding a reason to fight for what's good and right, we let evil make itself at home in our world. The hope that things can be different is what motivates us to act. And it isn't just hope for the world. When we meet together, it reminds us that there's hope for our own lives, hope for better days ahead, hope that the next week might be better than this week, hope that this world is not our home. We're just here on a mission until we reach our final destination, and all evil things will end and be made right. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that love and good deeds happen when we meet together. We make each other better. We make each other stronger. Another writer said it this way. He said, iron sharpens iron, meaning we can make each other better. Meeting together calls us up and holds us accountable to a set of higher standards of who we imagine that we can become. And maybe the most important phrase in that whole passage is the not giving up part. See, the writer of Hebrews knew that it would be super tempting to skip the living life together part of following Jesus. The author knew that meeting together would require commitment and sacrifice. Showing up and connecting requires reprioritizing your schedule and guarding the time you get with your group. Right? Meeting together doesn't always seem easy when there are other things that you could be doing. And just a pro-life tip, like there will always be other things that you could be doing instead of the things that you should be doing. So learning how to prioritize your time effectively at a young age is extremely beneficial. But I'm not just talking about meeting together with other high schoolers in your group. In fact, a lot of the book of Hebrews is devoted to the idea of having a leader or person who knows God and is a little further along than you in your life. The truth is, we all need somebody, an adult somebody outside our families who can help us figure out life. That's what your leader signed up for, and that's why they're here leading your group to begin with. They actually want this. They signed up for it. They want real conversations about your real life. They don't need a fake or perfect version of you. They know you're not perfect. They signed up to be here with you every single week to be with the real you. Here's what I'm getting at. This idea of community in Hebrews is more than just a group of friends. This wasn't your average group of friends watching football together or the people you make TikToks with. This was ride or die. These were the kinds of friends and leaders who encourage you, cheer for you, say the real stuff to you, listen when you say the real stuff to them, love you enough to tell you what's real even when you don't want to hear it, stick up for you when somebody talks bad about you or tries to hurt you. This is bigger than just hanging out. This is what we call community, Christ-centered community. And here's the deal. The people who were meeting together in the original church, they weren't all alike. They weren't all friends before they came to church. They didn't all agree on every little thing. In fact, if I can be really honest with you for a second, part of being a mature person is understanding that you don't have to be like people in order to love them. I know some of you are thinking, yeah, but my small group sounds nothing like that. All right, and that's okay. But imagine with me for a second, what if it could? What would it take? The fact is, what's said in this verse can be true of your small group experience. Think about it. Meeting together, motivating each other towards love and good works, and encouraging each other can be your reality. But let's be honest, you have to be willing to put something into it. In other words, when it comes to your small group, you get out what you put in. Either your small group experience in high school will be great or it won't. And this isn't something that your leader can do for you. Ultimately, your group experience will be what you and your group decide it will be. And here's why this matters so much. The quality of your high school years will be impacted for better or worse by your small group. What you put in here affects every other area outside of this building in your life. I can introduce you to graduate after graduate who looks back on their years in high school and tells a story of their small group being where their best memories happen, the toughest conversations happen, the most important moments happen. But I can also introduce you to graduates who would say the opposite. For them, it was 1 hour a week and a group of people who weren't real, didn't really care about each other, and ultimately it didn't affect them. Both are possible and both are ultimately up to you. But how? What could and should we put into our small group experience? Now, I'm sure there's a lot, but let's just start with a few things. One, be present. Commit to showing up for small group every single week. Give it a chance. Be open to what could possibly happen. You never know what you could get out of the time that you spend with your group if you only invest the time. You know the difference between the parts of life where you actually try and actually care versus the parts where you just pretend to try and pretend to care. So don't pretend in small groups. Try to give it your all and see what happens. Most of you who get the most out of your group time will be those of you who have been in it for the long haul. You don't give up because when a life crisis happens, you got your people to fall back on. When something unexpected happens, you got people there that you've already invested all this time. And maybe you being real about whatever's going on in your life or somebody else in your group will just be that opportunity that your group needed in order to bond and have this shared experience where we're all here for each other in a way that we wouldn't have been had we not actually put in that time over the years. So give it your all and see what happens. Secondly, create a safe place. This isn't about being nice, it's about being real. What happens when you're in a place where you know that what you said will be talked about later by the people in your small group outside your group? You're going to say less. You'll pretend more. You'll put on a face. You'll become fake because you feel as if you have to be. And I just think that high school provides enough fake places with fake people that you don't need more of that. You need to be in a place where you can be safe enough to be real. But this isn't something that just happens on its own. This is something that you plan for and fight for daily. This is something that you call out when somebody does or shares after a group in a way that makes the group feel like an unsafe place. We need to be better as a church and as a people dealing with conflict that we have with one another, where we can resolve it amongst ourselves in a positive way, and that actually builds up the group. So be honest and be real with each other. Lastly, make it personal, right? Remember, you get out what you put in. You can't expect somebody to share if you don't share as well. You have to make the effort to get out and get to know people and to care about them. All right, send a text, start with a conversation, sit with someone from your group in service who you don't normally sit with. Don't pretend like you don't know each other at school, right? Welcome somebody new to the group. Be willing to talk it out when you need to, even when it's hard. What's the point? The point is that we were made for more than surface level relationships, and we get enough of those everywhere else in life. So let's let small group be the place where we can be real and ultimately allow it to be the place that can change and affect our relationship with God for the better. So maybe this sounds like something you want. Maybe knowing your current small group feels tough at times, but what if this was your small group experience? How different could your high school years look if you had a group of people who were always showing up for each other? people who were safe and real with each other, people who you knew and who people knew you, the real you, people who were living life together. That's what small group can be. Whether that's true for your small group now or later is entirely up to you. And that's what we want you to talk about when you meet this week. Because when it comes to small group, you get out what you put into it. So while you finish this conversation with your small groups, try to answer this question together. In your context, what is the best way that you can, as a group, encourage one another on a regular basis? Is it a group text or an app that makes a group chat easier? Or is it a Discord channel or a Bible study, YouVersion Devo, or a daily prayer challenge? The options are literally endless, so think outside the box. What is the best way that you as a group can encourage one another on a regular basis?